Hey listeners, thanks for dropping in. I'm Christy.
And I'm Melissa, and this is Buried Motives, where we dig deep into the details of some of the most gruesome
Dirtbag murderers. Hey listeners,
Welcome back to Buried Motives.
we are filled with chocolate and we're ready to go today.
And I hope you are ready for some drama.
I'm ready. I am all about the drama.
Do you remember the Jerry Springer show?
Yes, I remember watching an episode or two.
There was always so much drama on that show.
I wonder if it was staged. Like, could that really be real life for people?
Oh, well, today's case might give an insight to that, because that's what we're going to talk about today.
Were they on the Jerry Springer show?
They were.
No way!
It is going to be a drama-filled case today.
Melissa is spilling the tea.
Yep. I thought today we would cover something that was complete drama. The Jerry Springer Show has aired over 4,000 episodes in its 27 seasons.
27 seasons?
It was on the air from 1991 to 2018. I didn't even think it was on the air that long.
No. I remember it in the 90s. I didn't know it was that current still.
Mm-hmm.
But I do wonder, did it ever end without a fist fight?
Actually, it originally began as a serious talk show hosted by Jerry Springer, the former mayor of Cincinnati.
He was the mayor of Cincinnati?
Mm-hmm. And it was supposed to be this very down-to-earth, serious talk show where they would discuss real issues.
Oh, that took a turn.
It did, because when that didn't get any ratings, the network wanted the subject matter to get a little bit more creative and entertaining.
Oh, and that it did.
Mm-hmm. It turned pretty crazy.
Yeah, it got spicy.
The host of the show would later say about this show that he spent his life hosting, it really had no redeeming quality.
It was just solely for entertainment.
And that was after the show took the top rating away from the daytime queen, Oprah.
Get out. Jerry beat Oprah?
Jerry beat Oprah out.
No way.
Yeah.
So I'm not the only one who loves drama then.
No, you are definitely not the only one.
But he couldn't have beat her for long. I'm sure she would have regained her title as queen.
Oh, I think she has.
Yeah.
But in the height of the show's popularity, it would record at least 2 episodes daily.
What?
Mm-hmm. And one of those shows led to murder.
Well, I can believe it. Some of those people got pretty riled on that show.
Up until I had found this case, I had always thought that, oh, they're just totally making it up. That can't be somebody's real life drama.
Right.
But let me tell you about it.
All right. I've got my teacup ready. Spill the tea.
For the case I'm going to tell you about today, the show actually faced a lot of negative publicity after the murder took place for its role in the crime. But actually, the story began so many years before the fateful day when the episode titled Secret Mistress Confronted aired.
There was always a mistress on the Jerry Springer show.
It did seem that way.
Uh-huh.
And Maury Povich was Who's Your Daddy?
Yes. So many lie detectors, too, on those shows.
Yep. And this case would have benefited from a lie detector test because Ralf Panitz was a complete liar. He was born in Germany on the 20th November in 1959. And there's not a lot known about his life before he immigrated to the United States, but for understanding today's motive, that's about all you need to know. While Ralph still lived in Germany and worked as a house painter, he met Nancy Campbell in an AOL chat room in 1996 using the screen name Plainwell. Nancy, who went by the screen name Cupcakes99, was from Plainwell, Michigan. She was 12 years older than Ralph and had been born in 1948. After about a year of online chatting, the two decided that it was finally time to meet. When Ralph arrived in Michigan, realizing his dream of coming to the United States, the two quickly got married and began their life together in September of 1997.
Okay.
It's like a whirlwind romance.
But they chatted for a year, you said.
They did. But unfortunately, their romance wasn't like those TV rom-coms. There was trouble from the very beginning. Both Nancy and Ralph had had previous marriages and both had children. Ralph had 2 teenagers and Nancy had 2 adult sons. Both Ralph and Nancy were quite boisterous. Ralph had a love of loud music, motorcycles, and drinking. Nancy was the feisty, well-kept, life-of-the-party type. Both were not shy about their own needs and desires and frequently had arguments in front of neighbors and friends.
Ooh, so when you invite them over, they're the entertainment.
Yep. It seems like both of them just had these personalities that were bigger than life.
Okay.
It's going to make for awesome stage drama.
I bet.
In 1998, as a way to kind of start fresh, the couple moved to Bradenton, Florida, about 25 minutes south of Sarasota, and rented a 2-bedroom apartment. Nancy got a job working in Blake Memorial Hospital for a short time, and Ralph continued to work as a painter and a carpenter. Unfortunately, what also continued was the domestic disputes. That Ralph and Nancy had a volatile relationship was not a secret to anyone.
Did it ever get violent, or they were just loud about it?
Oh no, they got violent.
Oh, both of them did.
Yep. A former neighbor would later comment that the two of them just fed off each other. It was almost like a fatal attraction. The fights and abuse seemed to go both ways. Police were often called to the couple's apartment to play referee to the noisy fights the two had. The fights would usually be followed by a brief period of separation, but then they would always get back together again.
Huh. So it wasn't that they were calling the police on each other. It was neighbors saw screaming and chairs flying and whatnot, and they would call the police.
Oh no, it was a little bit of them calling the police too.
Oh, okay.
It was neighbors, it was Ralph, it was Nancy.
It was everybody. Even the dog.
Yeah. In a statement to a judge in the Manatee County about an incident on July 23rd, 1998, Nancy wrote, "Ralph threw me on the floor where I struck the back of my head very hard." She told the judge he made numerous threats such as, "He would kill me, and he should have killed me before this. He said that I deserve to die, and I do believe that he will kill me."
Oh no, is that foreshadowing?
That is where the drama's going to go today. But there's going to be a lot of drama in between.
Oh no.
So Nancy had this kind of premonition that he was going to kill her. They would go to court, they would get restraining orders against each other, or they would get injunctions filed against each other. And then a couple of days later, they would decide, oh, we actually want to get back together. We're going to drop all those charges.
Oh, so volatile it sounds like.
By the end of 1998, Nancy, though, was ready to call it quits on the whole relationship and actually moved out of their apartment. In February, their divorce became final, only 15 months after getting married in the first place.
Whoa, that was destined to fail right from the beginning, it sounds like.
It's hard to tell from the reports if the breakup was amicable or not. There were lots of reports about their relationship being volatile, but despite that and the divorce, it seemed that the two continued to hook up right after the divorce.
Oh, I'm not surprised, to be honest.
Drama can lead to passion, I guess.
It's a fine line.
Despite the continued hookups with his ex-wife, Ralph seemed to move on very quickly and started looking for a new wife. Not long after Nancy had moved out, he had another woman move in, and then another.
What?
The second woman was Eleanor Marie Isaac, a newspaper carrier in Sarasota. Like Nancy, Ralph had met Eleanor in the AOL chat room. This time, he was sporting a new screen name called Wolf Smile 2.
What? I mean, I know you're divorced. It's totally fine. But it always just seems so slimy when one person just gets over it so quickly and moves on.
They said that literally Nancy moved out and another woman moved in, like within the same week.
So my question is then, did he already have her on the side?
Oh, probably.
Yeah, because you're not meeting someone usually and then moving in within a week.
Yeah. Eleanor, who went by Ellie in real life, was from the Mi'kmaq Indigenous tribe and was a self-declared Wicca and a belly dancer.
Ooh, yeah. I took a belly dancing class once.
I've heard they're really good exercise and a lot of fun.
They definitely are a lot of fun.
Was it very freeing?
It was so freeing. I went with one of my good friends, and at the end of it, we won most improved out of the class.
I always love those most improved.
Yeah, we gave it our best. But it is a fun experience. If you're debating taking a belly dancing class, this is your sign. Go do it.
I'm not sure if I'll be brave enough, but that's what Ellie did. Again with Ellie and Ralph, it was a whirlwind romance. And after only 5 months, the two were married on St. Patrick's Day in 2000.
Whoa, he wastes no time.
Not at all. And they were actually dating before his divorce was even final.
Wow. So he obviously has this personality of all or nothing. Love hard, hate hard, fight hard. It just seems like he has a very boisterous personality.
Definitely a boisterous personality. And he just needs somebody to marry.
Oh, he's a dependent little dirtbag.
Yep. For Ellie, it was her third marriage. Her divorce from her second husband had just been finalized a week prior to their wedding.
Oh, she wasted no time either.
No, it wasn't just Ralph. For Ralph, there are some conflicting reports of whether it was his third or his fourth marriage.
Okay.
So because he had lived in Germany before, I couldn't really find out whether he had one or if there was 2 marriages in Germany.
Ah, that makes sense. But this was his second marriage in North America.
Yep, for sure
Okay.
it was his second in North America.
But could have actually been his third or fourth.
Right.
Okay, gotcha.
Definitely his third, and it could have possibly been his fourth.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which just means he was desperate for love.
That's right. And just because Ralph had a new love interest, it didn't mean that he and Nancy had stopped seeing each other either.
Ooh. What is it about this guy? If she just keeps coming back.
She does. She keeps coming back.
And he's able to get the ladies so quickly. Is he a looker?
He's not handsome.
Okay, I got to see a picture. Hang on, guys.
And remember, this is in the early 2000s. So
Okay,
he's not,
for-
like he's 40. He's
Yeah. Meh.
exactly.
He's not conventionally good looking, but he's also not homely.
That's right.
Yeah, he's just an average Joe. So he must have had some swagger then.
I think he did have some swagger.
Because he, to me, doesn't have the drop dead gorgeous kind of look to him.
I think he had some charm.
Yeah.
He definitely had a lot of confidence. That's for sure.
Well, and that boisterous energy, people can be attracted to that. That's a fun energy to be around.
Absolutely. Whatever was attracting women to Ralph, he was attracting women. And Nancy, it seemed, was aware of Ellie, and Ellie was aware of Nancy. But there were parts of each of the relationships that Ralph kept hidden from both women.
Okay.
Ellie knew that Nancy was Ralph's ex-wife, and she still came around frequently. And Nancy knew that Ralph was seeing a new woman named Ellie.
And eventually married her.
Nope.
Oh, she didn't know that they got married.
Nope.
Okay.
You got to leave some drama for the stage.
I am seriously going to have to go watch this episode after. I wonder if we could find it on YouTube.
You can definitely get it if you want to pay for it. But definitely Ralph was not telling the full story between these two women. From the love triangle that resulted came a lot of drama. Ralph bounced back and forth between the women and egged on their jealousy and hatred of each other as he declared his love for one, meanwhile sleeping with the other.
What a dirtbag.
Mm-hmm. The two women traded nasty emails with each other. One signing her email, Ralf Panitz's wife, and the other would sign back saying, Mrs. Ralf Panitz.
Okay. The claws are out.
Yup. It was getting pretty heated between the two women. So what do you do to sort out a love triangle?
You go on the Jerry Springer show.
That's right. You take the show on the road to Chicago and appear on a TV show before a live studio audience.
Man, that is not where I would want to air my dirty laundry.
Not at all, right?
No.
Especially knowing what the show's about, you have to expect going into it. Like, this is 9 years that the show has been on the air. They know what kind of show it is.
Oh, yeah. The show would totally have that reputation.
Mm-hmm.
And what did he say to them? Let's go on the show so we can work out our differences and come to a resolution?
Well, he told them each different things to get them there. But it was Ralph's idea.
He is all about the drama.
Uh-huh. On May 7th, 2000, Nancy, Ralph, and Ellie all appeared on the Jerry Springer show. It was actually Nancy's 52nd birthday, the day that they taped the show.
Oh, man.
Ralph, 40 at the time, and Ellie, 45, went on the show claiming that they were constantly harassed by Ralph's crazy ex-wife who just wouldn't leave them alone. So Ralph had told Ellie that they were going on the show so that they could get Nancy to leave them alone. He had told Ellie that it was his plan, or their plan, to humiliate Nancy so much that she would actually leave them alone.
Oh, so of course she was on board.
Mm-hmm. She was all about that. She wanted to claim Ralph all to herself. Nancy believed that she was coming on the show to finally win Ralph back from his girlfriend, Ellie, and to convince Ellie that her ex-husband still wanted to be with her. Ralph had begged her in March to go on the show with him and sort out their problems on national TV instead of in private because he said that the producers of the show had agreed to pay for his ticket back to the United States after being deported.
What a weasel. He is so manipulative.
Mm-hmm. Ralph convinced her that he wanted to reconcile with her. And so that's how he got her to agree to go on the show. Nancy wanted to prove to Ralph just how much she loved him and that she would do anything for him.
Oh, he is actually so mean. Like, to just be playing with their feelings like that.
Yeah, I have a hard time believing he loves either one of them.
No.
The way that he treats them is just so despicable.
No way. He is always searching for love, but when it comes down to it, the only one that Ralph loves is Ralph.
Oh, absolutely. And I think as we go through the case, you'll find that his search for love has ulterior motives. Fireworks took center stage as secret upon secret was revealed and both women learned of Ralph's indiscretions. Ellie flung her secret marriage to Ralph in Nancy's face. This was the first time Nancy learned of it, in front of hundreds of other people with the cameras rolling. The whole time, she had thought that Ellie was just a fling, and that Ralph would return to her like he had in the past. All the time that Ralph had been sleeping with her, he had failed to mention that he had actually married Ellie.
Oh, man. That would be so shocking, especially when he convinced Nancy that I want to be with you and I need you to come to the show so we can be.
Yeah.
What a betrayal.
She's thinking she's doing him this great big favor by airing their dirty laundry on national television so that he'll get his tickets paid for back from Germany. And so she's doing him this huge favor, and then he blindsides her.
Oh.
Hurt and wanting to strike out, Nancy flung it back in Ellie's face that the reason that she was still around was because Ralph was still having sex with her and telling her that he still wanted to be with her. In fact, Ralph had slept with her just the day before in the hotel where the show had put them up waiting to tape the episode.
No way. I'm feeling like, did I see this episode? But I'm thinking this is probably every episode. And you know what I will never understand is when one person cheats. In this instance, it's the man who has cheated on both of them. Why the women get mad at each other and why they're not mad at him. They often seem to do that where they're attacking each other instead of joining up together and beating his butt.
That's right. It's dirtbag Ralph that should be taking the blame for all this.
Yeah. Meanwhile, he gets to sit back and revel in the delight of watching these two women fight over him.
Yeah, his ego is just exploding.
Yeah, where the truth is he lied to both of them.
Mm-hmm. He's such a dirtbag.
Yeah, their anger should be focused on him, in my opinion.
I think so too. Throughout the whole episode, it seems that Nancy was really the one that was blindsided and took the brunt of the audience's dislike.
Because she was the other woman. Ellie and Ralph were technically the married ones.
Mm-hmm. And Nancy was quite a bit older than both of them. And so Ellie was calling her old and fat as the audience cheered on.
What?
Mm-hmm.
Ellie's older than Ralph too, so Nancy's not actually that much older than Ellie.
She's 7 years older than her.
In the grand scheme of things, what's 7 years?
I don't know. But that's what was happening on the show. I just found it so sad because Nancy had really believed that Ralph had invited her to Chicago to reconcile their relationship.
Yeah. And they had a history. It's not like she was some girl that he just randomly picked up in a bar and had just recently started sleeping with.
No, Nancy felt in her defense that she had had him first.
Yeah, and Ellie was, in fact, the other woman.
That's right. Ellie acted so disrespectfully towards Nancy because she felt that was the only way to get rid of this crazy ex.
I wonder if she felt threatened by her.
Oh, I imagine she did. Ralph justified sleeping with his ex to his new wife by saying that he had to maintain the illusion that there was still a chance for the relationship so that Nancy would actually agree to come on the show. And so on the show, he's like, yeah, Ellie, don't worry. I just slept with her yesterday just to maintain this illusion.
Oh, please.
That must have been such a hard task for him, right?
Yeah, how did you manage, Ralph? And did Ellie believe him?
Ellie 100% believed him.
What?
Yes, he totally convinced her that the whole reason he had slept with Nancy was so that he could prove to Nancy on the show the very next day that he didn't love her anymore and they could humiliate her and get her to pack her bags and leave them alone.
And the slap in the face would sting just a little bit extra.
Yep.
I can't believe she ate that up.
She did. At the end of the episode, after a fair bit of mudslinging, Ralph tells Nancy that he cares for her and he doesn't wish her any harm, but he just wants to go on with his life with Ellie. Host Jerry then turns to Nancy and unceremoniously tells her, "He's telling you he doesn't want to be with you." Nancy storms off the stage declaring, "That's fine. Bye."
Whoa.
It's a classic Jerry Springer episode.
I can picture this whole thing in my mind. Wow.
All of the drama made for good TV ratings, if nothing else.
It's just so sad that we know this is going to take a dark turn.
Right. And if the story had ended there, you would think, oh, they just totally made that all up.
Yeah.
They were just playing it up for the cameras.
But how terrible to be so humiliated on national television.
Mm-hmm. And after all that, I think most people would recognize Ralph's true dirtbag colors.
Oh, for sure.
Nancy even pointed out Ralph's game herself during the recordings, saying that he plays, quote, games with all of his women. He takes all of the money he can from each woman, and then he moves on to the next woman. So it's not like she didn't know what was going on.
Oh, that's really sad.
Unfortunately, Ralph's two-timing game just continues after the show's recording, and the drama just continues.
Nancy doesn't take him back after that, does she? They continue to have an affair?
They still maintain a relationship.
What?
Mm-hmm. After a brief period, because they have to allow Ellie and Ralph to have time for a honeymoon.
Oh, my Lanta.
Remember that Ralph and Ellie had only been married for 2 months before the taping.
If he is cheating on you and you're just newlyweds, you need to run.
Uh-huh. Their honeymoon phase didn't last long. In June, barely a month after the taping, Ellie and Ralph separated, and Ellie sought a court injunction against Ralph alleging domestic violence.
Aw.
True to form, though, for this tumultuous relationship, the two reconciled the very next day after she had sought the injunction.
Okay, is Ralph into voodoo magic? Like, does he actually put a spell on these women?
I don't know how he's getting away with this. And they don't seem like the kind of women that would fall for this.
Yeah, there's something that he's got that has a hold on them.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting because it just seems scripted. How can this be true?
Right. You can't make this stuff up.
Well, and it's not even that it's, like, I know, like, for him and Nancy, it wasn't just one-sided. Because we have seen in abusive relationships where women have a hard time leaving and will continue to go back to that situation. And we're not trying to cast any judgment on these women, but he had met his match with these women. And so it just seems harder to understand why they kept going back to him.
Yeah, it didn't seem like they were women that could be easily pushed over. She was herself quite boisterous and confident and could hold her own. And the same is true of Ellie.
Yeah, they fought back. They didn't just take it.
But they also seem to have this kind of dependence on him.
Interesting.
Yeah. So right after they had broken up, Ellie drops the injunction and they get back together. The fight that had brought on the separation was over Ellie not being willing to sign papers that Ralph felt he needed to stay in the United States. Ralph was not a fan of the idea of having to return again to Germany and had become a little neurotic about his passport.
Oh, so is he just using these women for a ticket to the U.S.?
It seems like it.
Oh, that puts a whole new perspective in there. Because then maybe he didn't really care about either of them and was just using them both right from the beginning.
And I think what actually tips him over to committing murder is going to be that motive, to stay in the United States. But the drama's not over yet, because in a bizarre turn of events on June 18th, so remember they had taped the episode on May 7th, so just a little over a month after taping that episode, Ralph and Nancy buy a house together.
What?
Mm-hmm.
Melissa.
So Ellie is out of the picture just for a short amount of time.
Yeah, a couple days.
Yep. And somehow Ralph gets Nancy to buy a house with him. There are some discrepancies of what the actual arrangement was. Even in court documents, the judge had difficulty sorting it all out. The most reported arrangement is that the two of them had agreed to purchase a house through a lease option on Grand Cayman Street in Sarasota. Nancy paid the down payments and the bills on the $116,000 purchase with the agreement that Ralph would do the majority of the repairs needed on the house and pay utility bills as his part of the contribution. From the time that the house was bought up until the day that the Jerry Springer episode aired, it was non-stop drama. Ralph was up to his old games. Even after the secrets had been revealed and all of the humiliation in front of the audience had been endured, both women still wanted dirtbag Ralph. Ralph, establishing his castle at the Grand Cayman Street home, started to move people in. First was his nephew Marcus Panitz, and next was... Can you guess who?
Another girlfriend.
Not just any girlfriend.
Ellie?
Yup.
No.
Ralph moved Ellie into the house that Nancy paid for.
What? The audacity. This guy.
He invites his current wife to come and live with his ex-wife in a house that he has now bought with his ex-wife.
Oh my gosh. My mind is blown here. He has got some nerve.
Uh-huh. In what can only be labeled as Jerry Springer level drama, the trio lived and fought all under the same roof, albeit for a very short time.
I cannot even believe that Nancy would let Ellie live there. I'd be kicking them both out on the curb.
Ralph made the argument that it was his house too.
But it's not Ellie's house.
Nope. But Ellie would go on to file injunctions saying that she did belong there because Ralph had invited her there.
And are her and Ralph technically still married?
Yep.
Oh, so I guess she kind of would legally be allowed to still live there.
Mm-hmm.
That's wild, Melissa.
It gets so messy. But Nancy does move out pretty much when Ellie moves in.
So now Ralph and Ellie are living in the house that she put the down payment and pays for?
Uh-huh.
Oh my gosh.
And while all three of them are living in this house, police are called several times with each corner of the love triangle making claims of abuse. Ellie filed stalking charges against Nancy, and Nancy files charges against both Ralph and Ellie. And even Ralph's nephew gets dragged into the drama and started filing charges against Nancy. Both Nancy and Ellie had court injunctions saying that they belonged in the house.
Oh my goodness. Can you imagine those poor officers arriving at the scene and trying to get statements and figure out the story?
No.
They'd be like, wait, what?
It would be so hard to follow this story.
Yeah.
There were so many allegations of punching and shoving and even death threats. But when police arrived, there was usually no evidence of scrapes or bruises on whoever was claiming to be the victim. Court records show that while each court appearance cost them money, that they were rarely effective at keeping the three away from each other. Often, complaints went nowhere because whoever was filing the complaint wouldn't show up at the court hearings or ask for the cases against each other to be dismissed. So it was like just this big waste of time in the court system.
That's so unreal to me.
Mm-hmm. On July 10th, 2000, things at the house came to a head. Ralph threatened to kill Nancy. Nancy told her attorney, quote, "He had chased me with a knife and made threats of taking my life," and was telling her all about the way he was going to torture her. Nancy decided then and there that she had had enough for the second time. Nancy moved out and started legal proceedings against Ralph and Ellie to evict them from her house. During the case preparation, she stayed with her aunt and uncle on the East Coast and got a job as a legal assistant. So just 14 days later, they ended up in court. During the court hearing on the morning of July 24th, she told the judge that Ralph had always been abusive towards her and that he took her life savings and threatened her, and in the past had chased her with the knife, body slammed her against walls and furniture, kicked her in the stomach, and gave her a concussion. On top of the eviction, Nancy pleaded for a restraining order and even asked for Ralph to be deported. She told the judge she was so scared in the house when Ellie had moved in, she had been forced to move out of her own house. In the few days leading up to the court hearing, Ralph had even threatened her, telling her that he would kill her and her whole family. He was just trying to think of a way to do it.
Oh, man.
Ralph argued during this court hearing that Nancy was just being crazy Nancy again, and that it was her that was stalking Ellie and himself. He also made these outrageous claims that Nancy had been using his telephone line to advertise sex for strange people.
That's quite the claim.
Yeah, really what I think it was is he was talking to a whole bunch of sex lines and didn't want Ellie to find out. And so he blamed it on Nancy.
Oh, yeah, probably.
Uh-huh.
That seems very plausible because it doesn't seem that it would be Nancy doing that.
No, what would that benefit her at all?
Yeah, he's terrible.
As you can guess, the judge sided with Nancy and ordered a restraining order against Ralph. The judge also granted her an injunction and exclusive use of the Saratosa house.
So Ralph and Ellie had to move out.
That's right. Ralph, Ellie, and Marcus would have to be escorted back to the house and given a set amount of time to collect their belongings. Ralph was not happy about this arrangement. He and Ellie were so irate and out of control that they needed to be removed from the courthouse by the bailiffs.
What?
Court officials were concerned about Nancy's safety and arranged for her to be accompanied back home. While Nancy stayed behind at the courthouse to fill out necessary paperwork, Ralph, Ellie, and Marcus all headed to Keegan's Clubhouse Lounge. Around 3 p.m. that day, at that lounge, they watched the Jerry Springer episode that they had recorded in May.
No way. Right after the court proceedings.
Yep.
They go to a bar and they're watching Jerry Springer, the episode of theirs.
They're watching themselves on TV.
Oh.
As they watched the episode, drinking beer and rye and cokes, Ralph got more and more enraged. By the time the episode was over, Ralph was furious, ranting and raving about being kicked out of his own house.
And now his rage is alcohol fueled.
He persuaded Marcus and Ellie that they should go back to the house, even though he wasn't allowed to be within 500 feet of it because of the restraining order. So he convinces the two of them, like, we don't need to wait for any cop to tell us that we can get our own things. While at the house, Ellie and Marcus used the time to collect their personal items, but not Ralph. He just walked into the master bedroom and declared loudly, "This is my house," and then sprawled out on the bed. It wasn't long before Nancy arrived at the house with the Sarasota County Sheriff's deputies at 5:30. Ralph, scared of getting caught, jumped out the bedroom window and escaped on foot, leaving Ellie and Marcus to be escorted off the property. Because they weren't supposed to be there.
Yeah. What a little turd.
Marcus and Ellie left in her car and began to look for Ralph. When circling the block didn't work, the two split up to create a wider search area. After a while, Marcus was losing interest in the search and returned to a 7-Eleven to call his girlfriend. Marcus was described by some as being one fry short of a Happy Meal. And so he lost interest pretty quickly.
Well, and honestly, he took off and deserted them when the police showed up. Why would you waste your time looking for him?
Well, Ellie's very devoted to Ralph.
True.
When Marcus arrived at the 7-Eleven, that is when Ellie found him again and started motioning frantically to him. Marcus later testified that Ellie called out saying, "Hurry up! Ralph's going into the house and he's trying to kill Nancy." Marcus said Ellie excitedly told him Nancy is crying for help.
So was she excited about it? Like she wanted him to kill her and they didn't want to miss out? Or was she worried and frantic about it? Like, get in the car, we have to help Nancy.
From Marcus's reports, and remember that somebody has said that
he's a fry short of a Happy Meal.
That's right. That he reported it as excited.
Okay.
Excitedly, she was telling him, and she's calling out for help.
Yeah, Nancy's going to get hers.
Yeah.
And we don't want to miss it.
Yeah.
Oh, she's a dirtbag too.
But maybe he misinterpreted, because just prior to Ellie finding Marcus, a neighbor had heard shouting outside the home between 6 and 6:30 p.m. and then spotted her on the street in front of the house pleading, "Ralph, please don't do this."
Oh.
When she became aware that the neighbor was there, she seemed kind of startled and walked away quickly.
Okay.
So it's hard to tell if Marcus's valuation of the situation was accurate or not.
And was she talking about the murder, or like maybe he was telling Ellie he was going to leave her? Please don't do this. Like, it's hard to say what context that was in.
Exactly. Marcus and Ellie returned to the house looking for Ralph, but he is still nowhere in sight. Marcus said that he tried to get into the house, but felt that the door had been barricaded and he wasn't able to enter.
Oh no.
That is when he began to fear that his uncle might have attempted to do something awful. He ran to the neighbor's house and called 911, telling the dispatcher that he feared that his uncle had possibly killed himself or his ex-wife.
Oh.
Around 7:30 that evening on July 24th, police were called to the house and found Nancy's body lying on the kitchen floor, still dressed in her green dress from the court. Police say it was one of the bloodiest crime scenes they had ever encountered. What remained of Nancy was absolutely unrecognizable.
No.
All of her facial bones and nose had been shattered. Ralph had beat, choked, and stomped on Nancy's head so many times that the sheriff's deputy who had been with her just earlier that day could not identify her.
Oh, how terrible.
Sadly, the humiliation and drama that she had endured had not been enough for Ralph. He also claimed the 52-year-old's life.
He is terrible. And even when you said that Marcus called saying, "I think my uncle is killing himself or his ex-wife," just speaks to his character. Because normally someone that you love and care about, a family member, you wouldn't ever expect them to murder someone.
No, you would say that there's a fight going on.
Yeah.
Right? That he might hurt somebody.
Right. And you would tend to more defend them. Like, there's no way he would do this. But even they knew, the ones that loved him and cared about him, that he was downright rotten.
Yeah, that he was capable of killing somebody.
Oh, and how sad for Nancy.
Yeah. while Marcus was making phone calls to the police, Ellie was still driving around in her silver two-door Oldsmobile looking for her dirtbag husband. When he was located, she said he was in a daze, and she picked him up and they fled. 2 neighbors witnessed the getaway and said that Ellie looked scared and nervous, and Ralph did look a little shocked.
Well, he must have been covered in blood. You can't sustain that kind of a beating on someone and not get blood evidence on you.
Well, Ellie says he wasn't.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And she would later claim when she picked up Ralph, she had no idea that Nancy was actually dead at that time because he didn't have any blood on him. Which is a little shocking because when police finally catch up with them later, Nancy's blood is still on the soles of his shoes.
Well, and you said it was a super bloody crime scene.
Super, super bloody.
Yeah, I'm not buying that then.
So when this neighbor saw the 2 of them fleeing, he questioned if they were all right because he noticed that they were both acting a little bit strange. And Ralph answered him just saying like, I'm fine, I'm fine. And then the neighbor commented that it must seem like an unusual day for them, referring to the Jerry Springer episode. Ellie answered, if you only knew.
Yeah, no kidding.
So there's a lot of questioning whether Ellie knew that Nancy was dead, whether she had actually encouraged Ralph to do it, or whether she was totally in the dark and was just kind of taking care of her husband in the moment.
Yeah, it's hard to say.
But there are some really questionable things that she says.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the ongoing drama amongst the trio and Ralph and Ellie's escape, police almost immediately suspect that they have a part in Nancy's death.
Oh, for sure. They've just been told to collect their things and move out.
Mm-hmm. On July 26th, the police announced over the media that Ralph and Ellie were persons of interest in the case. And just a day later, they upgraded that to having a warrant out for Ralph's arrest for first-degree murder. Ralph was labeled as dangerous because of all of his past arrest and court appearances for the abuse and violence between these 2 women.
Yeah.
Police also had a warrant out for Ellie, saying that she would be a material witness and that she was wanted for questioning. The 2 evaded police for 4 days in total.
Ugh.
It was believed that Ralph and Ellie were fleeing to Canada.
I speak for all of Canada when I say we do not want you. Return to sender.
Yeah, really. They drove towards Ellie's home in Maine. Police set up surveillance near the Canadian border. But Ellie and Ralph both claim that it was not because Ralph had killed Nancy that they were fleeing. It was because they feared that Ralph would be deported for violating the restraining order. That was the reason that Ellie gives for why they were taking off.
But Ellie would have known at this point that he had killed her.
Oh yeah, it's all over the media.
Yeah.
They said that they were heading to the German embassy in Canada. And I say baloney because there are German embassies in the United States as well.
Yeah, baloney for sure.
Yeah. More likely, they were hoping to cross the border and hide on one of the reservations that Ellie had connections to.
That makes more sense.
On July 28, 2000, after the 2 had talked to a lawyer, they did return to Boston and turn themselves in, though.
Oh, that surprises me.
Sounds like it was more Ellie. It was when they had issued the warrant for Ellie that she got in contact with a lawyer and the lawyer talked her into, like, this is going to go better for you if you turn yourselves in.
Good.
Ellie and Ralph were flown back to Tampa, Florida, and taken into custody. Ellie's defense attorney claimed that the 2 had turned themselves in as soon as they had learned that they were suspects. And again, I say, baloney. It was days after.
We're not buying what you're selling.
Yeah. Ellie was subsequently released on a $25,000 bail, but would have to appear as a material witness. She vehemently denied that Ralph had anything to do with Nancy's death. She said, I can't imagine that he did. Ralph has always said, I don't hate Nancy. I don't hate that woman. Ellie maintained that she had left the house in a hurry only because she feared that her husband, a German citizen, would be arrested for violating the restraining order, and they had fled the state looking for a German consulate for help. Investigators never pursued pressing charges against Ellie. They believed her when she said she had no knowledge of the murder.
At the time, maybe not. But she had to have figured it out later.
Oh, I would think so. As soon as reports hit the media that Nancy had been killed, she would know right away.
She'd have to put 2 and 2 together. But I guess in her defense, she did contact a lawyer right away and then did probably help to talk Ralph into going and turning themselves in.
Yeah, I do think that that was largely her decision making.
Yeah, and I don't think she knew prior to it happening that Nancy was going to get murdered that day or had anything to do with the actual murder.
No, I don't think so either. Ralph was charged with murder in the first degree and 2 counts of violating restraining orders. Jerry Springer made the comment about the investigation, downplaying any connection with the show and the murder that had occurred. He said, quote, "They happened to be guests on the show. The show is television. This is life and death. Someone got murdered, and I want to respect that and let the police do their work."
Why even make a statement? Like, that just looks worse on you, trying to wash your hands of it and like, oh yeah, we had them on here and added fuel to this huge dumpster fire of relationships. But it's not our fault. We can't blame us. They just do what they're going to do.
Yeah, we just wanted to record the action.
Yeah, sometimes not saying anything is the better way to go.
Yeah. The show's creator, though, didn't follow your policy. Former executive producer Bert Turbo acknowledged that the program thrived on presenting intense situations, saying, quote, "You need emotion, you need passion, because without them, nobody would watch." But he does insist that nobody on their show is looking for a guest who is psychologically unstable. Again, I think probably they should have just said nothing at all, right?
Yeah.
During the trial in 2002, Ralph was represented by the same attorney that had represented Dr. Kevorkian. Jeffrey Fieger said that his legal fees had been paid by the German government because they were concerned that Ralph would have to face the death penalty in Florida. But I'm not sure if this is just some wacky claim or...
Yeah, that sounds a little suspicious.
Do countries actually pay for defense attorneys for their citizens?
I wouldn't think so.
Yeah, it was a weird claim, so I put it in there. Fieger had also created the crazy defense that Nancy hadn't died from the beating that Ralph had inflicted. Instead, he claimed that she had died of a heart attack and had cut herself while falling to the floor.
Oh, please.
Yeah.
You don't break every bone in your face from falling on the floor after a heart attack.
No, not at all. And the amount of blood that was at this crime scene was crazy amounts.
And it would have been all over. He wouldn't have beat her just in one single spot.
No.
That's infuriating.
That he just kind of tries to make up this other story.
Yeah. Oh, no. She did it to herself. It was by accident.
Yeah.
Is it bad for me to say that someone should have punched him in the face and said, oh, that was an accident? You did that to yourself.
Do you remember that game when you were kids? Oh, stop hitting yourself. Stop hitting yourself.
Don't. That triggers me. I hated that. Hated it. To this day. We won't even get into it, actually. But I hate that. That is so a trigger for me.
And this is, I think, the equivalent of the lawyer saying that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a jerk, honestly.
Yep.
Like, I get that you're trying to defend your client, but come on.
Yeah.
Do better.
Well, this idea didn't fly. Ralph's attorney had to try a new angle. He tried to introduce reasonable doubt by saying that Marcus, Ralph's nephew, had had just as much motive to kill his uncle's ex-wife as Ralph did. After all, he had also filed a restraining order against Nancy, indicating that he did feel that she was a threat.
Yeah, but if you file a restraining order, you're not going to purposely go back to that place, break in, and kill her. What a bunch of hogwash.
It just seems like he was trying to create his own little show of drama.
Just admit that you have no defense. Like, you're just creating lies now.
Right. Thankfully, the prosecution's case was a little bit more put together with evidence than the dramatic claims of the defense.
And maybe they actually had law degrees, unlike Ralph's lawyer.
He was a pretty high-profile lawyer.
Come on.
The prosecution showed that Nancy's DNA had been found on Ralph's Lower East Side sneakers. The tread on the sneakers also matched the 18 bloody footprints at the crime scene. The footprint impressions had been found around and on Nancy's face.
Oh, that's so sad.
The coroner also confirmed that skin samples taken from underneath Nancy's fingernails matched Ralph's DNA.
Good.
The prosecution presented the argument that the straw that broke Ralph's thin control on his rage had been Nancy's attempt to have him deported. The fear of having to return back to Germany is what caused him to beat the woman he had once loved so brutally that she couldn't even be recognized.
That's so deplorable.
Because it definitely wasn't this love triangle. He was quite happy with that.
Yeah, he thrived in that.
Yeah. On March 26th, after the 10-day trial, the jury returned a verdict of guilty for one of the 2 restraining order violations and a guilty verdict for second-degree murder after 18 hours of deliberation over 2 days.
Why not first degree?
I think that they still called it like a crime of passion.
Okay. So he hadn't planned on murdering her when he broke back into the house. That's what it escalated to.
That's right.
Okay.
And there was some discussions about whether it could be called premeditated because definitely when he originally went to the house and was laying in the master bedroom, he hadn't planned to kill her. But he had jumped out the window and then returned after the deputy sheriff had left.
And he had told people multiple times that he was going to kill her.
Mm-hmm. But the jury didn't think that it was premeditated. And so they returned a verdict of second-degree murder.
Okay.
On March 24th, 2002, Ralph was sentenced to life in prison. During the sentencing, he refused to enter the courtroom and face Nancy's 2 grown sons that had traveled from Kalamazoo, Michigan for the trial.
What a coward.
Mm-hmm. Instead, Ralph watched the sentencing hearing from another room in the Sarasota County Judicial Center.
Why does he even get that choice? He should be forced to face them.
I don't understand why they get that choice either, but he just watched it like they live streamed it into another room where he could watch it in private.
Yeah, that's garbage.
Yeah.
When you take someone's life, you are forfeiting your own personal rights to stuff like that.
Just because it's going to make him feel bad, he wouldn't face them.
Yeah, the only way that should happen would be if they were uncomfortable having him in the same room.
That's right. They should get to call the shots.
Yeah, make him face them.
So crazy. 4 days later, Dirtbag Ralph was locked away in the DeSoto Annex. Of the verdict, Ellie proclaimed that, quote, "We do not agree with this verdict. We do not think this was a fair trial." She said, "We really expect this will be overturned and we will have a new trial. I will never give up trying to see my husband as a free man because in my heart, I do not believe he did this."
Ellie, open your eyes. If he did that to her, he could do it to you.
Mm-hmm. To this day, she maintains this attitude. She stands by her man, even though he never really stood by her.
Never.
While she lives in a trailer park and barely makes ends meet, she continues to send Ralph commissionary money, accept collect calls, and she drives the 3 hours round trip to visit him in prison each and every weekend.
Oh my goodness.
And I could be wrong in assuming this, because I'm like, why would any woman do that?
Yeah.
But I think it's for the attention that she gets.
You do?
Yes, because since his conviction, Ralph and Ellie have remained together and they have appealed the ruling again and again, but to date they've been unsuccessful. To help their case, though, get back in the media, the two appeared on a documentary called Prison Wives.
Oh.
On the show, they complain about the unfair trial and the conditions that Ralph has been forced to live in. He complains that the prison is nothing short of torture and that it is so hot that he is unable to sleep.
Boo-hoo. This type of thing just gets under my skin. You brutally beat a woman to death to the point that she was physically unrecognizable. And you're complaining that the AC's not turned on?
Exactly. That documentary can be found on YouTube. To escape such horrid conditions, Ralph has been appealing to be extradited back to Germany, but his own country doesn't want him.
Good.
All of his attempts have been denied so far, which I just find so ironic. The reason he murdered was because he didn't want to be deported again, and now he wants to be sent back to Germany, but he can't get the permission to do so.
And I feel like that is like a final slap in the face for Nancy. He literally took her life because he didn't want to go back to Germany.
Mm-hmm.
And now because he's a little warm in his prison cell and he's crying like a little baby, he wants to go back to Germany.
Yeah, now he'll do it.
Well, I'm glad Germany said, forget you.
Sit in your prison cell and rot for life.
Yeah. Did you read the fine print on our entrance into our country? No dirtbags allowed. I'm getting riled.
If that was only the case.
Right? Oh, he is despicable. I can't find one redeeming quality at all.
Some dirtbags are just so selfish.
Yeah. And maybe one of the reasons I'm getting so riled is I'm talking about a dirtbag next week that has the same kind of vibe where he is just so evil to his core and is only worried about himself.
Mm-hmm. Nancy's sons did go on to sue the Jerry Springer Show, claiming that the show had created a mood that led to murder and sought a settlement of $25 million.
Really?
Mm-hmm. But it was actually never awarded. They actually felt for a time that it would be granted because another talk show, The Jenny Jones Show, had faced a similar lawsuit case.
Oh, I know that case.
Yeah, where a disgruntled former guest had murdered another guest just after appearing on that show. And that lawsuit had actually been granted the first time, but then was later appealed. And it set a precedence for the responsibility of a talk show for their guests' actions after the the show. Talk shows weren't responsible for what happened after the show.
Yeah, I think that's a whole slippery slope when you get into that. And I'm assuming that when they go on the show, they're probably signing waivers.
Yeah, and I don't know how you could ever hold a show responsible for actions done months later.
No, especially when they willingly all came on the show.
Whether they were manipulated into it by each other or not.
Right, but that's not the show's fault.
Right.
And when you're going on the Jerry Springer show, like you said earlier in your case, you know what kind of show it is that you're going on. So even though it's in bad taste, I don't feel like the show was to blame.
Yeah.
Not to the tune of $25 million.
And the courts back that up in the appeal for the Jenny Jones show. And so when Nancy's sons learned of the Jenny Jones's appeal case and that their case had been dropped, they just decided to drop their case. They weren't going to go through the courts anymore.
Okay.
And that is the drama-filled case of the two-timing rage-filled dirtbag Ralf Panitz that killed to stay in the country that he now wants out of.
Wow.
So do you think that was his motive?
Yeah, I think so. I think he sounds like the type of person who just lived in that moment. I don't think he gave a lot of forethought or reflectiveness about his situation and what was going on. It was what he wanted here and now.
Yeah, and I think that kind of attitude is reflected in his relationships with the women he had. He didn't care about their emotions or what they thought of him after. He was just after what he wanted in the moment.
Yeah, he had no regard for anyone but himself.
Mm-hmm. He just used people to his own means.
Agreed.
And it sounds like you have another dirtbag with kind of similar motives lined up for us next week, Christy.
His case is definitely different than this one, but you can see those selfish tendencies and just impulsive, rageful acts come out in his actions.
Well, we hope, listeners, you join us again next week for that episode.
You'll need to buckle up for it.
Until then,
see ya.
Bye. But as soon as you say test, I'm like, what do I say?
Am I the drama?
Yes, Christy. Yes, you are. No. Originally, it did begin. Originally, it did began.
Began. I just told you your two options, lady.
In Germanary.
I think you had a hard time saying Germany in another case. Germanary.
Recognize Roof's true dirtbag colors.
Roofs? We got Nelly. We got Roof. We're just making up names as we go along. You and names today are not friends.
As they watch the episode, drinking beer and Ryan Coates. Oh,
that
my
wouldn't
goodness.
taste very good. Our voices together create a melody.
Not quite, but